Well, Daryl, one of the aspects that I certainly over time have noticed in churches, but with redemption that stands out is just the whole musical component aspect and the impact that it has within the overall, I'll say structure, and I don't mean it in such a formal manner, but in the reaching out to love people and represent God. Talk a bit about where the value of music has come from in your development, the minister, the person you are now, but then the whole musical component and what's it all made up of here?
So really, well, just three things that morning worship I think have been a vital part of what we do here. One is practical teaching and preaching has really stood out because people are used to maybe church backgrounds a lot of times where they didn't really get a lot for Monday out of the message, and it's not to put anybody down. It's just not always the way people do it. The other thing was that first impressions, feeling welcome and friendly when you're there. But the other key opponent that I think is as crucial part as anything we've done to reach people in our areas and our campuses is that worship music aspect of it. And if you remember back when I several episodes ago when I talked about core values of how we started, not the core values that are on the wall, but how we started. One of them was to do things different in order to reach different people. And my feeling was one of the things that we could do dramatically different to reach a different demographic of people, of unchurched or de-churched people, was to do worship really differently. What if, in my mind, this is what I'm saying, back then, what if we could do worship in a contemporary way, which is done in a lot of places, not so much in this area at that time, but in a contemporary way, but yet in a style, because I think when we think contemporary, we think new songs.
Yeah.
But I don't care if it's old or new. The style that I wanted to do is much like what people would listen to if they're out on the back patio or if they're driving up and down the road. Because what happens is we are drawn to certain styles and approaches to music, and those things affect emotions, which God gave us. Emotions, we often give emotions a bad rap. They can't rule your life. They're good gas gauges, but they're not, that what should drive you. But they're part of. But those emotions that would connect memories and remembering how good God is and how great He is, the music style can play a big part of that. And plus, you get them there, and they hear the gospel because they say, "Hey, come out to hear come out to our worship. We got awesome church band. You're going to love the music." Well, they may come for that, but then the gospel message that the music plays and also that the preachers teach, that gets them, and they hear Jesus. And so I knew that music had to be a big part of it. And what I pictured was stylistically something that was modern and local, like regional. So what we did was we started with kind of when we started putting a band together, praise band together, it kind of almost was a Southern rock kind of approach to it. And then, as you might know if you've attended any of our campuses, there are different flavors of that because we do a band approach. Each week there's a different band on stage, not necessarily just plug and play people in each band. And so Jasper campus probably has the most diversity in music because we have more people to pull from. And so we have an Americana / bluegrassy sound band that a lot of people, including myself, love in this area. We have a modern worship kind of rocky type band that people really enjoy as well. And then we have a more kind of Southern rock style of bands and different pieces of that, and different campuses have different things. And so the idea is that it's music praising God and talking about His greatness and reminding us of His greatness in a style that sticks with you because it's what you listen to, it's what you like, it's part of it. And so we knew that was an important piece, so much so that I was praying to God in the early days for the guitar player I was praying for a drummer. I was praying for those kind of things because I knew that was what we pictured here. And so that's how it all started. And it's kind of diversified. They've made a lot of their own music. They've written their own music. They've recorded some music, and the different bands, the different people in that. And Daniel Ross, our executive pastor, who's been our worship pastor for a lot of years, he kind of has been a guiding force in a lot of that. But each new team member we bring on brings another piece, another approach. And so what happens is they get together, let's say a month at a time. They get together and they look at the sermon series that we're teaching. What kind of theme are we going for? What kind of scriptures are being used? And then they pick from our library of songs, and they're constantly adding to that library of songs. They pick from our library of songs what would drive that home. And so you'll get people sometimes say, well, I wish we did more old hymns, or I wish we did more brand new, top 40 Christian songs. And what they don't understand is we're not picking a song for that Sunday if it's based on whether it's an old hymn or whether it's a brand new song. We're picking it based on the words, the lyrics, the biblical gospel lyrics that fit with that day, that day's topic, that day's theme. And so there was a few weeks ago, we had one that was there was 3 hymns that Sunday, or 3 older songs, I should say. Somebody, oh, I really like that. Well, we didn't pick it because they were 3 older songs. We picked it because they really went with. And so these guys get together, and every campus does the same songs. Now, they're done in different ways because the pieces of talent around them are totally different. And then another thing the reason we go for the different sounds, it's not just for the people in the seats. It's also for the people on the stage. So if you have, here's the church approach a lot of times. Okay, Chris Tomlin recorded this song. So you listen to Chris Tomlin and you do this song just like Chris Tomlin's band did this song. And there's nothing wrong with that. But what we found is maybe you have a drummer that's a little less Chris Tomlin, a little more David Crowder band. And so you want him or her to be able to kind of use their gifts to how they are.
Play to their strengths.
Yeah, like for example, LG's preaching style is much different than mine because he has this personality and these strengths, and I have this personality and these strengths, and we're different. And so we allow them then to use their personality in the music that they did. So by having the different styles of bands, it works really well that way.
What's been the greatest challenge, or what is the biggest challenge when it comes to the music consistency? As you stated, you do have different flavors now that you've got multiple campuses with Lagodi, Tell City, Jasper. What's the greatest challenge for that musical team?
There's 3 challenges that I can think of right offhand. The first challenge is you're working with volunteers. This isn't their job. They work a job all day long, and they come in here on Tuesday nights for rehearsals, and then they come in early on Sunday mornings, and then there are 3 services if you have 3 services, which we have 2 now, but we used to have 3 services at Jasper campus. And so it's difficult because you're trying to work with their schedules. You can't say, well, you got to be here that Sunday because they got vacation planned or they got a kids ball game. So you have to work around availability. And so that's a challenge, but it's good, but it's a challenge. The second thing is we live in a smaller area. This isn't a city. None of our campuses are located in large cities. And so the talent pool of gifted musicians is not as large as it would be if we had a church in Indianapolis or we had a church in Chicago. And so you're a little bit limited in how you can do it because you don't have all the pieces to do it. So somebody hears a song by Elevation Worship and they love it, we won't be able to do it just like Elevation Worship did it, who has probably, first of all, they pay their musicians. They're not volunteers. Second of all, they have an enormous pool of them, and we can't fill all those pieces. And so that's a challenge sometimes to find enough people to fill those pieces. And then the third challenge of that would be and we don't have much problem with this. I don't hear tons of drama, but I just know you're dealing with people, and people can be messy. And not only can people be messy, if you lean towards the artistic side, you're a little more free spirited than others, and so molding them together and gelling them together is probably a challenge. Although I don't hear much problems with it. I think our people are so bought into the mission that it's not as big a challenge as it could be. But those are the three challenges to doing what we do worship wise.
Well, you've been very fortunate because the talent that you have in your stages that all of us, many of us that attend, all of us certainly have enjoyed is just a strong degree of talent and a pool in that aspect. How often does the talent pool with the artist change?
Life stages, people move away. That happens. Occasionally, people have just done it so long, or their kids are in a different life stage and they want to take a break, or they want to step back. But for the most part, longevity is pretty good. I mean, we have, you talk about Mike Weisensteiner, who's one of the drummers at Jasper campus. You talk about Andrew Kiefter. Those guys have been doing it forever and ever and ever. Mike since almost the existence of the church, and Andrew a lot of years, and Andrew fills a lot of spots in different ones of our groups, and Mike has always been able to do that as well. And you look at Kyle Street at Lagodi campus, who's been there since day one. I don't remember how old that campus is now, 6 years, 7 years, I don't know. He's been there since day one, being a part of these longevity guys and gals who are definitely long timers. So you don't have a ton of turnover. But what we have found is it is hard to recruit new people. And it's not always just because those spots are filled. Mm-hmm. It's because, again, the talent pool is not as big here. But the second part of that is the commitment level that we ask for. I mean, you're looking at, hour and a half to 3 hours on Tuesday night, depending on the band and depending on the leader, depending on the week. You're looking at being here, by 8 o'clock latest on Sunday morning at this campus, and I think it's probably true of the other campus as well, doing run-throughs and doing that, and then staying for all the services, and so it's hard to get people. A lot of people will come and audition, and they'll not stick around for that part of it because it's a level of commitment. I remember years ago, a sweet lady, very gifted. She didn't want to keep doing it because she just wanted to do one service. We're like, well, the way we're doing this, if you're on stage for one service, you're on stage for all the services. And she graciously said, yeah, I don't think that's something I want to do at this time, this stage of my life, because that's a big commitment. I mean, I know with my family, we never get to come to church together, ever. We don't ride in the same car because of the different volunteering aspects of it. My wife's spent most of our time getting the kids ready to be here when they couldn't drive, and I have to come early, and so on. And so the bands face that too. It's if I'm going to come and be here all day, then who's going to get my kids here, or how am I going to have to leave in between services, run and get it, So there's a lot of commitment to it, and so that's a little bit of a challenge, but they do great, and everybody that we've had, they're so committed. They're such an important part of what we do. It's incredible, really. I can't think of anything that's been a more identifying part of our DNA other than the mission than that. So if you go to any campus, you're going to feel that in some way or another.
It's been an opportunity throughout time to engage the youth in that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it really has, because we have a student band at what we've had them at the Lagodi campus at different times. We certainly have had for years at Jasper campus. We've had youth student-led bands, and I'm sure the Tell City will do the same thing when they get to that point. And so they've been through it. They've graduated, and new ones come in. They graduate, and new ones come in. And we actually have a band that is made up of former student band members that's going to be working towards helping lead on Sunday mornings now. And so it's pretty neat because you're developing that legacy of it, and it's been neat to see. And then the adults that have worked with those, Caleb at Lagodi campus, and Kurt Neighbors for years here, been a part of it, and Jeremiah Smith, one of the worship leaders of the staff, has led that the last couple of years. Ryan Linton will lead that aspect of it at Tell City Camp. So our worship leaders are actively a part in helping disciple those students, not just in music, but in life as well, and in Christianity. So it's been really cool. I mean, I know each of those leaders even has students to step back because they're involved in something in their life and they need to get that worked on first. And so that it's just neat to watch that. But then they're growing into followers of Jesus who hopefully will serve and use that talent and that gift forever in some way or another.
That's fascinating. You mentioned auditions. For someone out there that may be viewing this that says, hey, that may sound like something I want to do in the future, how are auditions scheduled and how do they work?
You'll see in the weekly that we send out every Wednesday that goes out via your email if you signed up for it. I also post it on our social media links. You'll also see that maybe on social media that, hey, in July, whatever, we're having an audition to be on the worship team. And so you just see that, you show up and they work with you. Honestly, a lot of times the people come and they know what they want to be a part of. Sometimes they come like, oh, I don't want to do this. Sometimes they come like, hey, we love you and that's great. If you could be a part of singing and worshiping the audience, but probably not to the level of leading people on stage. One of our staff members famously said, everybody should make a joyful noise to the Lord, but that doesn't mean you should put a microphone in front of it. And so
I'm one of those.
You want the person to have some capabilities in that as well. And so we do those. So you'll see them posted and you come on out and be a part of that.
Even speaking of music, from time to time, you open up the church for concert like Cochran and Company recently.
Yeah, it's not something we do often, but when an opportunity comes up, and we have had a relationship with Michael Cochran for years, goes back the friendship, not just with our worship staff, but he's a personal friend of mine as well. I'm really good friends with Daniel Ross, and so when that opportunity, he said, hey, I don't have a show in Indiana right now. We're traveling. It'd be nice to have one here, and it's a great opportunity. I think we packed the house. Everybody had a really good time. I think God was glorified. It was really cool. So yeah, absolutely. And we love the partnership that we have with guys like Michael Cochran. And it's a little bit of a surreal experience to be driving down the road and hear a national telecast radio, and you hear somebody personally song on there. It's like, that's really cool.
Well, Sirius 63 now, he's got his running home music on there. It's wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely.
That piece.
Yeah.
And, music,
he's got a great heart, by the way, one of the most humble people I've ever been around. So.
Well, it was a fascinating show. My wife and I loved it in that piece. From time to time, when life grabs us, if you will, we allow it to take us when we're away from the church. We may forget for that reflection and get that time with God, but that music can bring it back to us in a short order.
Yep. Absolutely. Well, there's have you ever been walking in a store and you hear a song on the speaker, and all of a sudden this deja vu feeling from a memory, a nostalgic memory, come upon you? Same can happen with smells and things like that, but music's probably the most powerful medium that happens in. And so I think that's why God has always, if you read the scripture, singing and worship and music has been a part of worshiping Him from the get-go. And I know that's why, because there is that connection with us. And I would say, wouldn't you say, let me just throw out, 80% of people like music. You have those.
Never met somebody that did?
Yeah, there's occasional people here and there that music's not their thing, but it may be 90%. But most people like and experience music, and not everybody's like me. Now I like all kinds of music. Like there's rarely a style or genre of music that I don't like some of it.
Have you ever had a service without music from the first day you opened?
I don't think we've ever had a service where we didn't sing some worship songs. There have been some services where we did not have musical accompaniment, especially in the early days where we just didn't have people to do that. And that's good too, because make a joyful noise with your voice, lift it up, and unplugged sometimes is very healthy. I like when we do like acoustic Sundays randomly. I wouldn't want to do that all the time,
Yeah.
but I sure like when we do it. You can hear just the voices. It's really powerful. And so we have had occasional like that. I don't know that we've ever had a worship service where we did not have some form of singing.
So as you and your team, as we wrap up this episode, a final question, as you and your team look at strategies and things you like to keep fresh within the service agendas, what are some things maybe you've talked about that we've not seen yet? Might not ever see, maybe.
Yeah, no. Well, there's a fine balance between sharing and not wanting to have more ducks in a row before you share. Obviously, multi-sites, we probably will continue to add sites. Missions-wise, we're planning on doing some really cool revamping and how that's communicated and how that's there. But the one that I'm giggling because I don't want to get the cart before the horse, but we have a tremendous growing Central American population, Hispanic population, that is moving into not just our country, but our county and surrounding counties. And English is a hard language for them. They have not learned it yet. And so if you're looking for Hispanic churches in our area, there's really two types of denominations that really kind of have that. There's the Catholic Church, which have done a wonderful job of years with reaching out to the Latin American people, the Hispanic population. And then there's charismatic churches, kind of Church of God, Pentecostals, who is a lot of what a lot of the cultures would be in Central America in particular. I don't know about South, but Central. But there's not anyone that I know of doing what we're doing the way we're doing, our style, our exact kind of doctrinal approach in a primary language of Spanish. And so it's my dream to plant a Hispanic language campus, probably within our Jasper campus, where there would be services going on. It'd be just like we have a Logoti campus, we have a Tell City campus. It would be just like that. They would meet here. They would share children's ministry space because the language is not a barrier for the younger kids. They're in school and learning it. They would share lobby space. We would interact and be doing host moments there. But the primary message would be in Spanish, and the musical flavor might have a little bit more of their culture's flavor in it than what we do on center. So that's a big dream of mine. I would like to start it yesterday, but
I had no doubt about that.
But the resources and so forth and pulling it off. But that's definitely coming.
But music again would play an integral part.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Hey, Brother Love, you appreciate what
Thank
you're
you.
doing.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for what you're sharing for all of us to understand Redemption Unplugged and behind the scenes.
Yep. Thanks, buddy.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Appreciate it.
Till next episode.
Yeah.